Biologically speaking, humans are an anomaly. If you were to place a naked human in the middle of the African savanna, alongside a lion, leopard, or even a baboon, and we pitted our physical strength against theirs, we all know who would lose. Humans lack the fangs to tear flesh, the claws to climb swiftly, and our running speed is abysmally slow. A human's top speed is only about 44 kilometers per hour, while a cheetah can hit 120 kilometers per hour. Herein lies the miracle. In his book, The Silent Language, anthropologist Edward T. Hall notes that humans engage in something no other creature does: extension evolution. Because our bodies are limited, we chose to throw our evolution outside of ourselves. Think about it this way. A bird requires millions of years and thousands of generations just to grow wings to fly. Humans didn't need that kind of time. We simply invented the airplane. We didn't need thousands of years to strengthen our fists to crush stone. We simply created the hammer. Let's dissect the science. Why are humans so weak compared to our closest relatives, like chimpanzees? Genetically, we share nearly 99% of the same DNA. Yet a chimpanzee possesses 1.5 times the explosive strength of an adult human. They can easily snap hard tree branches or hurl objects with a level of force that seems nonsensical to us. Why did evolution allow us to become such fragile creatures? The answer lies in an extreme energy gamble. In biology, there is a famous theory called the expensive tissue hypothesis, proposed by Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler in 1995. Imagine the body as a country with a very tight energy budget. The body cannot provide for everything, must choose which organs to prioritize. Chimpanzees chose to allocate their energy budget to dense muscles and an extensive digestive system. A chimp's gut is massive because they must ferment raw plants for hours. Consequently, chimpanzees have strong, resilient bodies, but their brains cannot grow large because the operating costs simply aren't available. Humans, however, took a different path. We made an evolutionary barter. We drastically slashed the energy budget for our muscles and digestive systems, then redirected those funds entirely toward building a brain. This is why the human brain, despite weighing only 2% of our body mass, consumes 20% of our total daily energy. In comparison, a chimpanzee's brain only uses about 8% of its energy. But this gamble was incredibly risky. With a gut 60% smaller than other primates, humans could no longer rely on hard-to-digest raw food. We became creatures hungry for energy, yet possessed weak bodies and small stomachs. This is where ancient technology emerged as an absolute prerequisite for survival. Take stone tools, for example. Without stone tools to crack bones or cut animal muscle, early humans would never have been able to access energy and proteins and fats. Humans might have remained trapped, chewing low-calorie plant fibers all day long. Then came fire, or pre-digestion technology. Just as vital as stone tools, fire acted as an external gut. Without fire, early humans wouldn't have been able to cook food. Cooked food is easier to digest and yields more nutrients than raw food, an essential factor in triggering the growth of a larger, more complex human brain. If early humans had failed to invent stone tools and domesticate fire, the laws of biology would have forced us to remain small-brained. We might have had back and arm muscles as strong as a chimpanzee's for climbing and fighting, but we wouldn't have the cognitive ability to create language, art, or digital technology. In short, we traded our physical strength for intelligence. We became weak so that we could become smart. Evolution bet that intelligence was a better survival tool than muscle, and that bet has certainly paid off. Let's jump ahead to about 10,000 years ago, when humanity made its most radical technological leap, the Neolithic Revolution. This wasn't just about planting seeds. It was about humans fundamentally altering the mechanics of nature for our own benefit. For millions of years, humans lived by the pattern of hunt now, eat now. Our lives were entirely dictated by the seasons and pure luck. However, by domesticating crops like wheat, rice, and corn, humans created the world's first energy storage technology. In his book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, author Jared Diamond explains that domestication created a food surplus. For the first time in history, humans had leftover food that could be stored for months. This was the battery that powered civilization. The consequences of this surplus were extraordinary. If everyone's stomach was full from the harvest, then not everyone needed to be out in the fields. As a result, the specialist class was born. While some continued to farm, others finally had the leisure time to become toolmakers, architects, leaders, and even scientists. So, if our ancestors had failed to domesticate plants, you would never be watching this video. Why? Because there would be no video editors or YouTubers. We would all be too busy in the forest, risking our lives chasing deer just so we could eat tomorrow. Biologically, however, the human brain has social limitations known as Dunbar's number. Proposed by anthropologist Robin Dunbar, This theory suggests we are only capable of recognizing and trusting a maximum of 150 people. This means hunter-gatherer groups were destined to stay small, limited by the availability of food in the wild. But agricultural technology allowed thousands of people to live in the same place without starving. Agriculture forced us to invent social technologies, laws, religions, and government systems to manage thousands of strangers living side by side. However, there was a price to pay. Living in permanent settlements alongside livestock exposed humans to new diseases known as zoonoses. Science tells us that diseases like the flu and smallpox were born from this proximity. The farming nations that managed to survive inadvertently developed a form of biological technology, a robust immune system. In the future, this immunity would become the deciding factor in which nations would come to dominate the world. After millions of years of only being able to crack stones, humans finally realized one of the universe's great secrets, that certain earth and rocks could melt and transform into a new kind of power. This was the Metal Age era where humans no longer just used nature, but began to fundamentally manipulate its chemical structure. The Bronze and Iron Ages weren't just about creating sharper weapons of war. They represented the first mastery of high-level chemistry in history. To extract metal from its ore, humans had to discover the technique of smelting. This process requires a constant temperature above 10 degrees Celsius, heat impossible to achieve with a regular campfire. Early humans had to invent furnace technology and bellows to trigger the extreme heat capable of breaking atomic mineral bonds. This was the precursor to modern materials science. The moment humans learned to cook the very structure of the earth. Why was the discovery of metals so vital to the future of humanity? The answer lies in the unique mechanical properties of its atoms. Imagine if we had failed to discover metal and remained forever trapped in the Stone Age. Our work efficiency would have hit a dead end. Why? Because stone is inherently brittle. If you apply massive pressure to a stone, it shatters into pieces and cannot be repaired. Metal, on the other hand, possesses ductility. This means metal can be bent, forged, and stretched without disintegrating. This specific property is what allows us to create nails, bolts, cables, and high-speed machinery. Without the ductility of metal, our civilization would crumble under the weight of massive machines because the components would be too fragile to hold. It might sound far-fetched, but the mastery of metal by ancient humans is the reason we could land on the moon or observe bacterial cells. Scientific fact: without the mastery of metal, the scientific revolution of the 17th century would never have happened. We wouldn't have been able to build the sturdy microscope frames needed to see germs, the precision telescopes to map the stars, or the Gutenberg printing press that spread knowledge across the globe. So, every time you hold your smartphone or drive your Tesla, remember this: they are the direct evolution of a stone axe sharpened millions of years ago. Technology isn't just about silicon chips. It's about the what-if spirit of our ancestors. What if I sharpen this stone? What if I harness this fire? Early humans didn't just survive. They were the first engineers who laid the very foundations of our modern world.